Hello, friends, it's Chops, and welcome to another Chopsvlog. But not just any another Chopsvlog. This is the Chopsversary, the Vlogiversary, the whatever. This is the 52nd of these, which means it's a whole year's worth of content. Not a calendar year. Calendar year was a month or so ago, but a content year. You know, I missed a few weeks initially. So to celebrate, last week I said I wanted to do a question and answer with you guys to answer your most burning questions about me, about what I thought about WoW, what I thought about life, what I thought about anything really. And some people submitted some great questions. So what we're going to do for this the year anniversary chops whatever is I am on this lovely little lake out here in Northrend. I have poured myself a celebratory adult beverage, and I'm going to fish and answer y'all's questions. And hopefully my cats won't be too terribly rowdy through the whole thing. So I was initially going to just answer these sort of in the order that I got them, but then I decided that I would try to set it up to answer these questions in a way that would lend itself to a natural conversational flow. Nothing's perfect, but I think this will be a little more interesting than me going, okay, so Rise submitted 15 questions. Here they are, rapid fire. So we're going to start at the top, and that one is from Krenel, who asked, what do you think about endgame in Dragonflight? I think that this expansion is going to be better than Legion. I certainly hope it's good, but I have no frame of reference. Haven't played much end game on the beta. I just kind of poked my head into one of the zones once. They look lovely. They're fantastic looking. I don't and haven't played end game since Wrath of the Lich King was released originally. I do quest through the new zones and level a character up to the expansion cap. But that's really all I do. I think they're setting themselves up for it to be a really good expansion. I think that the return of talent trees and sort of the professions revamp and the UI revamp and the potential for console edition, which we're going to talk about here in a second, lend themselves as evidence to a team that is finally starting to answer the question, what kind of game do we want World of Warcraft to be? Which is one I think that they haven't known an answer to for probably about a decade now. And it's lent this sort of identity crisis at endgame that Blizzard's kind of suffered from for a while now. So I think that they're finally starting to answer that question. And I think Dragonflight is really set up to be very good. I hope it's very good, and I'm looking forward to questing through the new zones. But I don't know, man. Was Legion good? I hope it's better than Legion. If the questing is at least as fun as Battle for Azeroth, then I will consider it a successful expansion. But we'll see. We'll see. I hope for the best. Rise asks, when retail WoW becomes available for consoles, how do you think that will impact the player culture in the game? I don't know. I am with you, and I am fully convinced that WoW will be coming to consoles sometime in the next year or two. Sometime in Dragonflight expansion, we will see a console release for World of Warcraft. I don't know how it will impact culture overall. WoW on the whole, as a bunch of players, tend to be fairly friendly. I know that there's a reputation for people being extremely toxic, but we're talking about a very loud, small minority. But I think that we'll see people be more or less friendly. I do think you'll see some toxicity towards console users in a small sort of isolated situation. You know, I think you'll see people, because console user movement's going to be fairly obvious. I think you'll see people / emote at them a lot. I guess they took spit out of the game, but you'll see him slash emote a lot at them, whatever the emote of choice is. I definitely think you'll see some higher end mythic pushes and raid pushes that are like, looking for so-and-so and so-and-so, no console players. For sure think you'll see that. And I think you'll see console players like grouping together in solidarity and having like console only guilds and stuff like that. But I think for the most part, we won't see much of a change from the people who are currently playing World of Warcraft. What I think we will see is an influx of much younger players in World of Warcraft. From what I gather, the youths are far more console gamers than they are computer gamers. And so I think that opening up World of Warcraft on console will attract a wide number of younger players. So I think that's going to be the big change is younger people who are used to and expecting a different gaming experience than you or I might be used to, and I think that works in with Krenel's question about Dragonflight endgame and me saying I think Blizzard has decided what kind of game they want WoW to be. And I think that part of that is they want it to be a game that is accessible to and enjoyed by people who prefer console gaming. That's where I come down on that. Icehawk asks, is there a future for 20s in retail? Numbers have dropped off a cliff since they merged with 29, and Dragonflight isn't looking to be much better if nothing changes. So is there a future? Yes, Icehawk. My honorary free-to-play friend, there is a future for 20s. There's always a future for 20s. It may not be what we experienced in the back end of Battle for Azeroth and Shadowlands. But remember, man, we remember early BFA, like vets and free-to-plays were mixed in with 29s and levelers, and it was bad if you were a free-to-play. It was a little rough. And if you were a vet, you could do all right if you were a vet, depending on what class you played. And that seems to be the status of 20 to 29 BGs currently, is that as long as you're playing the right class, which is Hunter and Priest, and you're at 20, you can at least not feel useless. But I think the bigger answer to that is, and I talked about it in previous videos, that most 20s players, the hardcore free-to-plays, the guys who were 20 before 8.1.5 are still going to be playing 20s. They're not going to be giving it up. It's just everybody's going to go back to being the PvE heroes that they were, and begrudgingly playing PvP matches when they either have the mental space to be goofy about it and just have a good time. They're in a good mood and they're not gonna rage out, or B, because they're chasing some achievement and they're willing to put up with the grind of just kind of being useless in a battleground. So yeah, there's a future. Of course, there's a future. There's always going to be a future. Until they destroy starter accounts as a thing, there will always be a future. Chin up, man. It's gonna keep going. Josh Holmes asks, what is your favorite era of WoW specifically for twinking? If you could permanently play a character in a particular era with WoW's peak subscription and population numbers following you there, what would it be? I've already done that. I twinked in 39 Wrath when WoW was at its most popular. And that was, to me, the pinnacle of twinking. I was worried when Wrath Classic came out that I was gonna jump back into Wrath Classic, and I was going to discover that my love of Wrath 39s was just rose-colored glasses, right? I was looking looking fondly in hindsight, and actually 39s sucked. No, 39s and Wrath rule. It's awesome, and I'm so glad that I get a chance to like play it again and really appreciate it for what it is. You know, like knowing that this is the peak of twinking. To me. I'm not saying it's the peak of twinking for everyone, but to me, it's the peak of twinking, and I get to do it again. That's awesome. Yeah, this is my favorite part of WoW. It is my favorite era of twinking, and the only thing that's different between this time and last time is subscription numbers are, I don't know, about a fourth of where they were, or something like that. Yikes. Rise again asks, what keeps you working on content and helping to manage XP off community interests after all this time? For those of you who aren't aware, I don't just do the YouTube. I am a moderator at the XP off forums and Discord, which is what Rise is referring to there, as well as the YouTube channel. And I think that's because I always have had this thing that, like, if you're going to be a part of a community and if you're going to take pride in being a part of that community, you should probably contribute something to that community. And if that's nothing else than just logging on and playing Battlegrounds actively and just being an active member of a guild, like that's contributing to the community, and I think that's good. But I think that I have the time and I have the mental resources to do it, and I think that somebody should do it. And part of it initially started as a desire to sort of learn video editing and use the YouTube channel, good God, guys, as an excuse to teach myself video editing. And then I just started doing these Chopsvlogs, which are real low edit. I don't have to worry about too much. And also to spread my love of free-to-play twinking. You know, I really thought that if more people were exposed to it, more people would enjoy it. And I think I maybe got some people into it and had some people enjoy it, which is always good to me. A thing I enjoy, I helped other people enjoy, and they found a thing that they enjoyed. That's fantastic. As for moderating the community, it's really, honestly, I'll be super honest here. There are were a lot of Nazis and sex pests on the XP off forums. And when I was given an opportunity to become a moderator, I jumped at it, and chasing those motherfuckers out of the forums was like priority number one. And that's one of the reasons I became a mod. I think gaming communities in general are breeding grounds for that kind of fucknuttery. And we as gamers have a duty to make our communities as safe for everybody as possible. And that means making them very unsafe for Nazis and sex pests. And so one of the main reasons I enjoy being a mod is being able to uphold that. Because honestly, fuck those guys. I'm glad they're gone, and I'll defend my community from them for as long as I can. Rise asks again. Rise asked a lot of questions, guys. Rise asks, twinking in WoW is an interesting niche to discover and pursue, with many layers to its community and significant changes over the years. Did you ever make a similar pursuit of another hobby or interest? And if so, would you talk about similarities and differences? Yeah. One of my hobbies is collecting hobbies. And I am particularly drawn towards hobbies that have a niche within a subculture within a niche, right? And pause for a second. So twinking is sort of this layered subculture, right? So gamers are already, or at least when World of Warcraft was fairly new, gamers were already a subculture of the community, right? And then people who played hardcore RPGs computer-wise were a subculture of that subculture. You know, when you thought of gamers in like 2004, 2005, you were talking about guys who played Halo on Xbox. They played Madden. They played, maybe the occasional nerd was still playing GoldenEye or something. And then people who took like MMORPGs seriously were even more of a subculture than those guys. And then in World of Warcraft, people who played PvP were a bit of a subculture because, early on at the time, PvP was not taken as seriously as it is now. And then people who twinked were even further a subculture of that. So you have this sort of like layered subcultures within subcultures, Russian nesting dolls of subcultures. And I've always been interested in those particular groups of people that congregate around certain interests and hobbies. Another one of mine is, for instance, I'm real big into punk and hardcore, and I enjoy the history of punk and hardcore, which is its own subgenre and subgroup of music. But I'm also particularly interested in the history and culture of Southern hardcore and punk rock. Like if you're into hardcore and punk, most of that scene was like New York, DC, New Jersey, and so like you might not know about Southern hardcore, but it's this cool little subculture. I like minor league baseball and the history of minor league baseball teams and ballparks, right? Like I dig all that stuff, which is a roundabout way to say, yes, I have pursued that with other hobbies. The differences and similarities. The similarities are really how tight-knit all those groups of people are. So, when you're a part of a very small community like that, there is this sort of like camaraderie in suffering, a sort of camaraderie in being ignored. Sometimes there's a camaraderie on feeling like you're in on a secret with other people. And it's just a camaraderie of finding a small group of people who are all super interested in the same thing that you're super interested in. So that similarity just permeates all of them. Another one is that I think about a lot is kind of how these weird niche subcultures find a very particular brand of weirdo, which is to say they're my kind of weirdo, they're just a little off of normal from a lot of people. And I think that there's a way that a lot of people who are really into these sort of niche hobbies and niche subcultures look at the world and think about the world and explore the world that is, I think, much more insightful of some of the some of the things that life has to offer. I don't know. It's a weird way to put it, but I find people who are a part of these very small subcultures have to quote the awful like motivational speaker phrase for it. They have a much more hunger for life than a lot of quote unquote normies do. A lot of the differences that I find in Twinking subculture compared to other subcultures is that despite that community, it's really fucking toxic. It's odd just how much a large majority of the Twinking population really revels in creating misery for other people. And that's where they get their fun, which is kind of weird in a way. And so that's the big difference. That's a really good question. I might revisit this and kind of do like a whole video about it. But yeah, we'll move on from there. Sketchbag asks, do you enjoy American football? And if so, who's your team and why? I did enjoy American football. I no longer do. I find it extremely boring. But when I was big into football from say 95 through to about 2010-ish, I was a huge Green Bay Packers fan. That was my team. Big Packers fan. But they, because they are the only team, they don't have cheerleaders, which I always thought was neat and good. Cheerleaders are silly in professional football. Did you know they don't pay those girls anything? Two, they're the only team that doesn't have an owner. They are community owned, in that the community can buy stock in Green Bay, in the Packers. And there's a management team, don't get me wrong, and for all intents and purposes, they have a sort of group of owners. But the community does own them, and it's written into the charter of the team that they cannot be sold, because any profit from the sale of the team has to go to a charity. And if I remember correctly, that charity no longer exists. So the Green Bay Packers can't be sold, and that is good. But I don't really watch football anymore. I find it spectacularly boring, especially after like almost 20 years of playing rugby. Football is just the lesser sport, but it's also like after almost 2 decades of playing rugby, I suffered a number of brain injuries, and which has made me very sensitive to watching other people suffer brain injuries, which makes football very hard to watch because it is essentially just a concussion factory, a very boring concussion factory. So yeah, no more football for me. Rise again asks, as a personal trainer and gym owner, what was one of the most pervasive myths, challenges, frames you found yourself working to overcome for your clients and customers? This is a good one. It's the most pervasive and most difficult to fight was that good training is complicated and fancy. That you're going to go to your personal trainer and they're going to lead you through a series of 10 to 15 different exercises, all involving a wide variety of equipment and movement patterns, and that those equipment and movement patterns will constantly change and be varied, and that there's some secret mathematical formula behind it for why they're doing it that way, and that's how you achieve whatever your goal is. That's how it comes about, and it's simply not true. Regardless of what your goal is, unless it is a very specialized sport position, we'll come back to that in a second. If your goal is to get healthy, or your goal is to get strong, or your goal is to get lean, or your goal is to just look fucking ripped, the truth of the matter is your workouts are going to be very boring, very repetitive, very simple. You can get obscenely strong showing up to the gym, doing 5 sets of 5 of deadlift, squat, and bench press, and just adding 2.5 pounds to that every time you go in. That is the basis. That's the basis of a lot of programs out there. It's just called a linear progression. It's very simple. It's very easy. When you start getting a little advanced and a little more advanced, you just start doing percentages of the same stuff, man. It's super, super simple, and it's super, super easy. A barbell, a squat rack, and like a basic 5-3-1 program from Jen Windler, or 5x5 strong lifts, or starting strength from Mark Ripito. Like, they're all very popular, they're all very successful, and they're all very effective, especially for the average Joe, beginner lifter, intermediate lifter, just showing up to the gym and doing their thing. It's not complicated. And that's the thing that's the most pervasive. Like, if you want to get fit, if you want to get healthy, if your doctor turned to you and said, hey man, look, your health's kind of sliding, you're putting on a little extra weight, your blood pressure's a little high, that kind of thing, one of the most effective things you can do for your overall health is just go for a walk. 30 minutes a day, go for a walk. If half that walk has a bit of an incline, you're doing great. And it's just doing it repetitively, constantly, that's going to make the difference. And that people don't want to hear that, right? People want to hear that, like, oh, well, you can break out these exercise bands and you got to do 5 sets of 12 at this resistance, and then 4 sets of 10 at this resistance, and then 3 sets of 8 at this resistance. And if you're not doing that, you're really messing up and you're wasting time. And like, there's a whole industry of people out there on YouTube and on Instagram who are 100% committed to making this seem as mystical as possible because it keeps them in business. The simplest thing you can do is go for a walk, go for a run, or follow a very basic barbell program that you could buy from a book that costs like $20. Like that's it. The other myth that I'll throw in here real quick is that Hollywood stars are just a product of like following some special. It's a similar thing. They're a product of following some special fitness program or strength regime. You know, Henry Cavill looks like that because his personal trainer is a genius, and Chris Hemsworth put on all that muscle mass because his personal trainer was a genius and he ate a whole lot and all that stuff. These people are all on drugs. Do not forget that. Hollywood is not a tested federation, so stop falling for that one too. Sorry, fitness rant from a gamer. Cygnus, finally, our final question asks, when Wrath Classic ends, do you see yourself continuing to progress your free-to-play on retail? Do you plan to jump ship on WoW as a whole? Any other games that you could see yourself enjoying long-term? Or do you think you'll move primarily into other hobbies? And man, this is a big one, folks. It depends on how Wrath Classic ends. I have zero desire to replay Cataclysm. It was not a particularly good time for 39 Twinks. That was the era of like Shield Slam Warriors and Aim Shot Hunters and all this just being an absolute nuisance. If I remember correctly, like Rhett Pallies became near unkillable. Anyways, it was just a mess. I didn't enjoy it, and I'm not eager to go back to it. But if they move on to, say, Wrath Classic Plus, my interest is piqued. I might hang around to see what that's like. Which is to say, my time in Wrath Classic is as long as Wrath Classic exists. When it ends or how it ends, will I go back to my free-to-play? I don't know, man. I have a few more goals on my free-to-play that I want to knock out. I still haven't finished BFA engineering, and if Blackpaw ever becomes acquirable, I would like to acquire Blackpaw. I don't see myself putting near as much time and effort into it as I have over the past year, just simply because I did kind of what I wanted to do with it. Like I said, I have a few outstanding goals, but mainly I'm good. I don't think, though, that I will ever quit WoW entirely until they turn the servers off. Like, I will probably, after Wrath Classic ends or moves on to Wrath Classic Plus, if they do that, or if they just leave Wrath Classic alone and let us kind of do our thing for a while. I think that, hang on, I gotta do some inventory management here. I'll hang on there, but I think that I'm at a point in my World of Warcraft career where my max level retail tunes are basically going to get expansion logged, like not even raid logged. Like I said earlier, I'm going to hop on, I'll level through to expansion cap, and that'll just kind of be the thing. Maybe play a couple dungeons, whatever. I might do the same thing with my free to play, like hop on, see what the new expansions have to offer, see if there's anything interesting about it, and just play, and make sure I keep collecting like my holiday stuff, when Christmas rolls around, get your Christmas presents, like that kind of thing. It's always cool. But yeah, I don't see myself playing the game for extended periods of time anymore after Wrath Classic wraps up. But hey, that's subject to change, you know. Are there any other games you could see yourself enjoying long term? Yes, there are. I am a huge fan of the game Darkest Dungeon, and I could play that for a long, long time, and have played it for a long, long time. I also recently bought Diablo 2 Resurrected, which is a little bit of fun, and that's a game you can just kind of mindlessly pour hours and hours and hours into. But I am not, this may shock you, I am not much of a gamer, actually. The only video games I really play are World of Warcraft and Darkest Dungeon. Now, I've dabbled in a couple of others here and there, but never put more than like 100 hours into any of them. So I'm not really a gamer. I am a fan of a couple specific games. So when my time with those games ends, I do think I'll be looking into other hobbies, primarily keeping up with my Kill Team Warhammer 40K playing and painting and modeling that stuff. That's a lot of fun. But yeah, man, I'm still around as long as Wrath Classic's around. That's where I'm at right now. But yeah, that's it, man. That wraps it up. That was long. That was rambly. I'm not even going to edit it. We're just going to post this up raw onto YouTube, and you guys can enjoy it. I'm going to go get some Battlegrounds in with the homies, and hope you guys have a nice time. As always, thanks for staying all the way to the end. I really do appreciate it, and I will talk to you all next time.